I love that point that you make, because are you a basketball fan by any chance?
I'm not a very faithful one, so.
Okay. Well, I am.
I'm 5'4". I wasn't really like made for basketball.
Hey, Muggsy Bogues.
Yeah, well,
So I've mentioned that because I love basketball. I'm a huge basketball fan. And recently, Michael Jordan's documentary came out, The Last Dance. And he just made such a great point. There was two things that he said. So when he joined the league in 1984, he said, and he was talking about bringing a championship to the Chicago Bulls. He said that, it's going to be very hard, but it's not impossible. It's going to be very hard, but it's not impossible.
hmm,
And he trained like that, right? The way he trained was above and beyond. And it didn't happen in a year. It didn't happen in 2 years, right? It happened 7 years later,
hmm.
that first championship, which I just think is incredible, number one. But then I think it also points to the fact about knowing something's hard, but then also putting in the work and going above and beyond. So even as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, wow, the job search process is hard, but even thinking, I don't know if people take that step. I wonder, have you seen people take that extra step of really being strategic with the job search process? What percentage of people would you say kind of are putting in that Jordan level effort?
25.
25. Wow.
Yeah, and there's a bottom 25 that are hoping that the two people they know they can talk to are going to be their miracle cure for their job search, and they're still searching, sort of.
Wow.
And then there's people in the middle, kind of, um, that kind of do okay. I want to say I want to say something that just sparked from what you said. That's really a little different, but it gets into the idea that you just got to keep working at it, and
Mm.
it's something that my friend Tom said in our recent webinar, and we were talking about ageism, which you guys don't have to worry about.
Irrelevant. No, I'm just no, we got to empathize.
But no, it is relevant, because it's the
Okay.
idea that something about me makes me a less attractive candidate
Mm.
without even getting out even getting started, which is, it's race, right? That could be
Yeah.
another version of this. And what Tom said is, he said, it could be true, but you don't usually know it.
Hmm.
Like, you might sniff it a little bit, but you don't really know it. And thinking about it does not make you a better candidate.
Mm.
So you could say, well, I don't have the kind of network that you do, Chip. You know all these bankers and everything. So what? Remember, we already said you've got competency. You have
Right.
game to bring to the table. And if you do this process, this networking process, in a respectful way, where you ask questions, you learn about what people need, you highlight the solutions you can bring instead of being really needy. Oh, I need a job. You're going to be, first of all, you're going to be a breath of fresh air.
Wow.
And secondly, you got the kind of mindset that you need to move out into the world and find a place of employment.
I love
So
that, being a breath of fresh air.
yeah, I think it is. I think anytime somebody's confident and positive and they kind of know who they are, even if who you are isn't what I need, well, that was actually, I'm just going to think very highly of you. I'm going to remember you. I'm going to think I might recommend you to somebody else.
Hmm.
And again, it's just like, and you're very gracious about that. And it's not a big deal. And yeah, it's just really important, I think, to not, don't say no for them. Don't say no. I would really love to ask so-and-so's opinion about what's happening in, the music production business right now, because that's my thing, but he would never talk to me. No, 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 never do that. Never say no for
Wow.
them.
That's
Ask
really
them.
good.
Ask them, because you're only asking for information first phase.
That's really good.
We call that something. It's called an information interview. And at least the way it has worked in recent years, for every 10 information interviews you do, you get a job offer.
Wow. That's low. Those are low numbers.
Right. So,
I mean,
if you say, I'm going to try and interview 50 people, which I think is a good starter goal. So I don't know 50 people, but the people know the 50 people that you need to talk to.
wow.
By the time you get done to that, you should have at least 3 or 4 job offers, maybe more.
That's amazing, Chip. And I say it's amazing because that just gives me an idea for an entire challenge that we can lay
Yeah,
out to our members, right? It's like, hey, secure the job challenge, and
hmm,
really having those metrics of, okay, how many informational interviews have you,
yeah,
set up? How many people have you been reaching out to for just their opinions on X, Y, and Z? Putting together the companies that you've researched. That's an entire program. So if you want to see
it
that,
is.
guys, comment below and we will launch that for you.
Yeah, what 2 more things before, like the things I would do right now because this graduation's coming. I would make sure I have more than 500 connections on LinkedIn,
Wow. So practical.
because as soon as you hit 501, you just says 500 plus for your number of connections. But when it says 35, I know you're really not networking.
Wow. Benchmarks.
So 500 plus on LinkedIn. And the
These
other
are
thing
buckets.
I
These
would
are,
really be trying, I would identify my first 10 people I want to do information interviews with. And your professors are people, a great place to start, because some of them are probably very well networked, especially if they do consulting or something outside of the campus world, or they've written a
Mhm.
book, or they may know people that you should talk to. Um, if any of you, like anybody in your extended family network who is at all related to the kind of world that you want to be in, you should be mining them. But I moved to New York 6 years ago, and that's the way I did it. I asked everybody I know, who do you know in New York I should talk to? And then I did a bunch of research on organizations that I thought might be interesting. And I had a list of at least 75 to 100 people that I wanted to talk to.
Wow.
And
Prepared.
I asked the people I knew to introduce me to the people they knew, and they did. Sometimes I had to write the introduction for them,
Hmm.
which is fine. Tell me what you want to say. That's very fine. Short, 2 sentences, very quick, and a very clear statement of what you're looking for. I'm just looking for information. Take away their anxiety. They can
That's
help you.
good. That's good.
But yeah, I would be right now, before right now, as you're, before you have to cram for finals, I'd really be tuning up my LinkedIn page and getting those connections, because you can use all your other social networks to build your LinkedIn page. That's how you do it. All the people you're connected to.
Good point.
And I would be thinking about those first 10 information interviews so that I'm ready to go and I'm gathering information and I'm active, and I'd be trying to get as many of those as I could,
Hmm.
because
I
the
love
answer's out there.
the answers out there.
It's not on your campus. It's not in your dorm room or your apartment. It's not really on Indeed. As Indeed as a good source of information, or the postings on LinkedIn, but the answer's out there in conversations with real people.
Come
That's where the
on.
answer is. And so you say, I'm an introvert, I hate that. Well, Nana's giving away some of her extroversion for an extra fee.
Right.
She just spreads it around. No, as an introvert, you just have to have a plan. You just have a conversational plan. If you have 3 or 4 questions you want to ask people, you'll find that it's not terrible. You might even enjoy it because there's structure to it. But the answer is out there in the people you need to talk to. It is not in your head. It's not on a bunch of postings on the internet, and it's not. Well, your campus, you're not on your campus anyway. So I guess it's not wherever you live. It's out there with people who know about industries and careers and companies, and it's out there in people who are hiring.
Hmm. I love that. Thank you. This was really very, very practical. And
Good.
I'm gonna commit right now that we will create an entire guide and just quick blitz 30-day challenge program to help you guys jumpstart those efforts. And so just moving on to just the future. When I think about money and investing and entrepreneurship, it's about thinking long term, dreaming, right? The reason why I named the company Student Dream was because dreams and your futures and your thriving requires vision. And honestly, it came from inspiration from Martin Luther King Jr., that he was able to really imagine the future,
Right.
which I think is just such a superpower. And so you're in front of so many different industries and seeing just the future of work. So what would you say is like, what visions would you want and future do you want to start pointing students to? What do you want to when you think about them being prepared for just the, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, like talk to me about the industries of the future that you think people should actually be exploring or looking into. What have you seen?
Well, here first, let's start with a really big idea.
Please, yeah.
I think the future is still going to be, it's going to be high tech, and it's also going to be some form of high touch. It's going
Hmm.
to be technology and emotional intelligence. And coders aren't necessarily known for their emotional intelligence, right?
Right.
So, but it's going to be that's going to be the differentiating combination in just about
Interesting.
anybody. If they're at least tech conversant, but they're also really adept at reading a person, even through a video chat, and just analyzing video or body language, tone, dialing in, taking it up and being a little bit more challenging when it fits, but also sitting back, letting people talk, creating white space. Um, so I think high tech, high touch is really, that's not going away.
Yeah.
That's not going away.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that one of my, I'm writing a book with a
Oh,
with a
nice.
guy who grew a huge investment business. And one of the interesting things about his story is how little being ahead of the game with tech was an advantage at just some really key points, even in getting him the position where he launched his company, because he knew how to use the business calculator better than everybody else, which sounds really geeky. And he's not even like a really geeky kind of nerd kind of guy, but he just knew how to use the business calculator, and they didn't even have one. Um,
Yeah.
so, and then their firm was one of the first ones to use a computer process to analyze
What's the
deals.
company? Can I ask the
It
company?
was Invesco Real Estate.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All
So
right.
Invesco, the business, has a real estate division, and David started the real estate division. But technology is really important, and so
That's good.
uh,
Knowing how to use it.
and I for us in this last 3 weeks, it's 6 weeks now. Like we were a little bit ahead of the game with Zoom, and we've been asked to do things and been given platform to do things that if we didn't know how to use the tech, we wouldn't have we would have missed.
Wow.
So there's always a tech thing, and even with older workers, and I know you guys aren't older workers. Hopefully, you will be someday.
Right.
Um, but they say one of the keys for older workers trying to either re-enter the workplace or stay secure is to stay up to date on tech. And
Mm.
you know, and you guys know the difference. I mean, like when you're looking on a Zoom call or then you're looking up somebody's nose and you're like, well, they don't even know what's going on. And you know how that works. So it's tech is important. And it doesn't mean that you need to be somebody that can build technology platforms from the ground up and do the coding. It just means that you get it, that you understand it, that you guys are all supposed to be tech natives from your generation anyway, but tech is really important. But the other side to that is this high touch side, that you understand people.
That's good.
And
And
that
that may be a bit more difficult when we've been so accustomed to socializing only online.
yeah, it's we call it emotional intelligence.
Right.
It's the capacity to empathize. It's the capacity to, I think a big thing is, can you really listen to somebody?
Whew. We have not seen that amongst any generation lately.
Can you really listen? Or
Wow.
are you just waiting to cram your thing in, your point? And um yeah, I was
Wow.
just coaching a group. I have a group it's a group coaching cluster of coachees. They're in Australia, New Zealand, and we were talking about kind of cross-cultural and intergenerational impact. And um, so they're all in Australia and New Zealand, but they're all from all over the world, India, America, South America, and we all like the big discovery in that group, the big takeaway for most of them was, if I'm ever going to understand the person that's from a different generation cohort or a different place, I'm going to have to listen.
Mm.
That was, they have to identify their action item, and that was what it was. So, but that's a soft skill, and it's how we understand other people. One of the things we have to do with executives who are obnoxious, because sometimes we get paid to try and fix them, which is very difficult work, by the way.
Interesting.
Um, but we'd say, do a listening tour. Stop talking.
Hmm.
You know, ask people what this means to them, how this is landing for them, that kind of thing. So those two ideas, tech and touch, I think are going away. And that's not really what you asked me. You asked me about industries and stuff.
No, but that's great. And I
I
think
think
it's important too. I just want to put this out there. And I'd love to kind of hear a quick thought from you on it. I'm kind of irritated by the differentiation between, soft skills and hard skills, because it makes it seem as if soft skills is less valuable than a hard skill. What's your thoughts on that?
well, first of all, there is no one work culture or business culture.
Mm.
So, you know, I have a lot of clients in New York City finance, and it's everything from the Wolf of Wall Street to like the nicest sort
That's a
of
good point.
sanitized place you could ever imagine. So it's just this really, really wide range of
Even within an
experience.
industry that's known to
Yeah,
be only
right,
Wolf of Wall
right,
Street.
right.
Gotcha.
So everybody, and at a certain level, but I guess I'll just say this. I think there's some research being done that really links soft skills to the bottom line. In fact, somebody was just telling me, if you can increase your soft skills by X factor, your compensation goes up by 20%. You're like your
Wow.
lifetime earnings or something like that. So there's people that are starting to do some real research on it. But until it's proven to affect the bottom line, which it has been, but until that idea is embraced, people will emphasize hard skills. And
Yeah. And that's unfortunate. I'm very idealistic and optimistic. So I'm like, come on, everybody. But
I don't know. I mean,
learning the
and on
game
the
too.
work that we're doing in this book, it's kind of like David would say, if you don't have decent soft skills, you are never going to get the best out of your team, and you are never going to be able to kind of build the kind of resilient business that can handle storms like this and
Mm.
thrive for the long haul. And I think he's right. I think, there's people that just sort of suffer under an ogre of a boss. And there's lots of other words we use for bosses like that, but they don't really have the loyalty, the heartfelt, commitment of their team. You got to think that those places are not going to be as durable as the ones that do. So there needs to be a business case for it. And then the other issue is just like, well, where are the jobs going to be? Well, people are always going to be managing people's money.
Yeah.
There's always going to be jobs in finance. Finance as a whole is shrinking because it's becoming more automated because of technology. But it's still people want people to manage their money at an institutional level and at a personal level. And there's always going to be that kind of work. There's always going to be insurance. That's not going away. Those kinds of financial services-y kind of things, they're not going away. There's
Mhm.
always going to be some sort of retail, but it's probably going to be less and less brick and mortar.
Mm.
Um,
What are people gonna do with this? Is just an offshoot. I just thought about it now. What's gonna happen to all the buildings? Will it just be converted into housing? You
I don't
know,
know. I mean, it's a
very
really
interesting.
interesting, especially
Yeah,
street level. Who wants to live on the street level
yeah.
anyway? Um, it's yeah, real estate. This whole
That's
thing is going to
that's
affect
something.
commercial real estate
Wow,
in a massive way
absolutely massive.
because I have a client who is a commercial mover, and I have another who's in commercial real estate investing, and both we just were talking in a meeting the other day, and they were saying how um, I understand that everything was moving towards compression, giving people less and less space
Right.
in an office. You know, first it used to be everybody had an office, their own office. Now nobody has an office. They're in a big cube farm. Now they take the cube farm around. There are all these little desks right next to each other, and so that's not sustainable when we have to be fearful of pandemics. So um, companies are going to like rotating schedules, like you can only come in one day a week,
Right.
or one week a month. More people are going to be working from home part-time, and not full-time usually, but we're going to be more of a cycle there. And it's so what happens with real estate, I don't know. Some companies that say, well, we still want footprint, they're going to need a bigger footprint because they're going to need to space everybody apart. So maybe it'll equalize. We really don't know. And it's such an important, I think this is an important point to say, that we really don't know the implications of all this. And usually prognosticators are terrible at predicting like what's going to happen on the other side of
I
huge
know.
disruptions. Like when 9/11 happened, everybody thought New York City was done. Nobody was going to want to live here. And then, within 2 years,
Wow.
it was growing like crazy, and then it was the place to be. So, we really just don't know. But we do know that delivery, online shopping, that ain't going nowhere. Like we love that. Like, and that's,
Right.
Netflix, that ain't going nowhere. Like that's like, we love that. And we've proven that. Things that make our living spaces more agile so we can work from home or not. They're probably not, those types of things aren't going to go anywhere either. It's going to be really interesting to see how all that works.
Yeah, no, that's just a good, because, as I've been learning more and more just about investing, and it's so funny, I always laugh in frustration, but also in relief at the fact that there's a lot of industries that are far more simple than they're presented to be. One of them being financial services, and specifically equity investing. So investing in the public markets through stocks. And this whole idea of like, oh, what's your investment thesis? What's your investment philosophy? And just using other jargon that can make it sound more complicated than it is. But it really is just about like looking at information and trends, and who are they good leaders? Is that product actually valuable or not?
And you
And
don't even have to get that specific about it if you don't, like, so one of our advisors is
Mhm.
Bob Dahl. Bob is on
Yes, Bob's my
CNBC.
virtual mentor.
He's on CNBC.
I watched
He's
him on YouTube.
Nuveen. He's like, well, interest rates are going to go up. So that means bonds are a bad long-term investment. Usually they're a good safeguard, but they're not going to be a year from now. And equities are going to go up. Even if there's a huge another dip in the market, which there probably will be, they're eventually going to go up. And so he's like, just use dollar cost averaging. You guys talk about that? Like you just put in a little bit on a regular basis, so that you put it in on a good day or a bad day, it doesn't really matter. He also says to take it out that way too, by the way, which is interesting. But like, if you just start putting money in like a, S&P 500 ETF fund, you don't have to worry about, a good one. There's several good ones. You don't have to do too much work in terms of research, but you're going to build wealth over
Yeah.
time. And even if it's just $50 a month and you just do it all the time, you can be surprised. I read a statistic that if you could invest $16,000 by the time you're 25, you'll have like $2.5 million by the time you're 65. And you
Wow.
don't have to put anything else in it.
So 25, that's the goal. 16,000 by 25.
Yep. $2,000 a year from the age of 18 to
Wow, that is so doable. I love it.
it's crazy. Why doesn't
Right,
anybody
when you
tell
break
us that? Why didn't anybody tell me that?
That's what I was saying. No, I have these moments over and over again with Student Dream. I'm like again, as I learn more, as I talk to more people, I'm like, I literally feel robbed. I'm like, nobody wanted to tell me that. Come on. Which it makes me more excited why Student Dream exists, right?
That's right. Well, get the word out.
Yeah, your biggest asset is your time. So start now.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
That's great. Thank you, Chip. Thank you for
Thank
all
you.
this advice, man. This
This
is
was
awesome.
fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm learning a ton by talking to everybody, but this was, I learned a ton. I'm like, I can't wait to get to work. And so now, guys, the big thing is, what action are you going to take, right? A truth can never become your reality if you don't take action. And so Student Dream, we did not start just to get a whole bunch of ideas together, but we started so that you could actually turn your ideas into real tangible assets. And so my question to you right now what is one action? I mean, really, you got to be taking probably 3 because there's plenty of different actions that you're going to take as a result of this conversation. And I would advise you to, the first action you should take is signing up for a Student Dream membership. So in the Student Dream membership, you're going to get access to this entire community. You'll have access to me, to Chip, to similar people like him, right? Who have been there, have done that in the professional world as investors and entrepreneurs, who can help guide you on a regular basis, as well as a peer accountability group where we are hitting our milestones. We're reaching out to those 50 people. We're having those information interviews, and we're pushing each other both in the short term and for the long term, because we want to succeed and help each other succeed both personally, professionally, and financially. So for as little as $10 a month, you can get started today. So I advise you to click the link in the bio for that. But regardless, it's important for you to know that ideas are cheap, ideas are broke, and time is money. So let's get started today. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Cool.